morning, everybody. I'm Harris Faulkner. I'm your host for the first live hour of FoxNews.com, and I am so glad you're along for the ride. I've already gotten on the live chat. I invite everybody to do that. Just go beneath the box in which you're watching me in now, and you can click on through one of the social networking pages, Yahoo, Google, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you like. And I want to start this morning, though, with something that lives just next to the live chat box. And that is the question of the day. I love this question. This question's great. Okay, you guys know about the scandal with the Secret Service agents who went down to Colombia ahead of the president by a couple of days. And now it's coming out. I've got something I want to read to you a little bit later, too, by Senator Susan Collins out of Maine. Now it's coming out that there were reported 21 women showing up to partay, allegedly with the agents and 5 members of our U.S. military. The senator asks some really interesting questions. She's a member of the Homeland Security Committee. We'll get to more of that in a minute. Question of the day, is there such a thing as off the clock when you're on a work trip? The answer is, you tell me. You guys know me well enough to know what I say, though. Yes, no, or not sure. Secret Service agents and members of the U.S. military having alleged something or other in their hotel room during their assignment in Colombia last week. And our panel is here to discuss more. I'm excited to talk about this topic because there's actually a little bit of news to break on this, because for a while it's just been people's personal opinions and what they think, but now there are facts coming out on the case. On panel with me is Dee Dee Benke, former chairperson for Young Republican National Federation. Dee Dee, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you, Harris.
And also here is John Hlinko. He is the president and CEO of Hlinko Consulting and has kind of an interesting background.
Thank you.
He was a senior advisor to General Wesley Clark's presidential campaign and founded the draftwesleyclark.com. And I remember that because it was really, really successful. In fact,
thank you.
Who came to you next?
Well, we came to him, actually. I should clarify. Barack Obama.
Who took your call? Immediately.
It was very exciting. That one had a little bit of a better ending, actually, in 2008.
Yeah, interesting. DraftBarackObama.com. And then you did Senator John Edwards' first podcast. I'm thinking that was pre-scandal?
Yeah, that was 2005. That was a lot
so many scandals. And you know my motto for 2011 now applies to 2012. Handle your scandal. Okay. Senator Susan Collins, that's the only dancing I'll do this morning, Republican out of Maine, says that she was briefed by the Secret Service director on the prostitution scandal this week. She now says up to 21 women were brought back to this hotel in Colombia. Cartagena. She is a ranking member of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, first elected to the Senate in 1996. I give you a little bio information on Senator Collins because, in other words, she didn't just come across this on a Post-it note. She knows so much that it's generated these questions. Now, she obviously will know more, and members of that committee will know more than we do. Who were these women? Is there any evidence of previous misconduct by these or other agents or other missions? She focuses, though, on the women. Could they have planted bugs, disabled weapons, or in any others jeopardized security of the president or our country? Could they have been members of groups hostile to the United States? This is a big deal. Dee Dee?
Yeah, that's pretty dangerous pillow talk because seriously...
I didn't know that prostitutes talked.
But if they're prostitutes / CIA / whatever they are...
Gosh, it sounds like a James Bond movie.
Yeah, well, it happens. Those Bond movies are based on true stories. And, and there are 21. I mean, lucky 21. I mean, there may be one out of the batch that seriously is taking information or perhaps going to write a book or going to go to another country or going to get paid to do this. I mean, other than other services. But it's not good because it puts, that's the whole point of the White House. And after working in the White House, that's what they do. They want to see if there are things that people can bribe you with for internal information because, any position you have, and especially Secret Service. Secret Service of all the positions is the most sensitive, and that's her security, the security for the president. And have to say, again, after working at the White House, most are wonderful. I mean, I really feel bad for the Secret Service because I think overall they do an incredible job, but this was just really, really unfortunate.
You know, I don't know how many employees there are, but 11 agents, that's a lot. That's a chunk of people.
Yeah. I got to say it's mind-blowing because, you know, this is the kind of thing where if you're in that role, you know the spotlight is going to be on you. I mean, you know that this is going to get out. Or maybe they don't.
Because here's what's being reported this morning, too. Apparently the president's entire schedule was up in some of their rooms. Really, people?
Wow.
It's like...
Really? I put stuff away when like, people I don't know come to my house.
Well, you know, it's interesting with this administration because it goes all the way back to the state dinner whenever those folks that were on the reality show were able to just waltz in.
Yeah.
I just can't believe that because it was like Fort Knox. It was like more than that one. I don't understand how that happens.
Any sort of a problem, though, politically for this president? And I don't mean to say in any way, shape, or form he could have known or anything like that, but I just go back to the Salahis. You talk about gaining access to the president. He was not on the ground in Colombia when this happened, but this was part of the advance team for him. His schedule reportedly was up in their room, some of them. And I don't know, you know, what these women, if they have, everybody has a phone camera.
Sure.
Right? In every country in the world, you know, so it's really frightening. What are your thoughts?
That's what blows my mind about these, because, I mean, these guys have got to know, when you have 21 people you don't know come in and put you in a very compromising position, they take photos.
Well, you're paying them to be in compromising
apparently,
positions. Maybe you think you have the power.
Well, apparently one of them decided he didn't want to pay, which is about the most expensive non-payment in history. I mean, and that, I think, is how this whole thing started rolling. He decided he didn't want to pay. Someone got miffed. And you know, I just find it absolutely mind-blowing. I don't think it's going to hurt the president. I think the reality is, unless it's systemic, unless it's, you know,
and I don't agree. There's also sensitive information that's going to be in the room. Guns. I mean,
weapons. Really, I mean, I think Senator Collins really starts to raise some interesting and very disturbing questions. She says, given the number of agents involved, does this indicate a problem with the culture of the Secret Service? Those are the people who are physically closest to this president.
But we've never heard this in another administration. I don't remember there being Secret Service.
Well, the Salahi incident with the couple, just remind everybody who gained access to that state dinner. And you know, some of those people on the staff have been let go from the Obama administration, one in particular. Who was the woman who organized the party? What was her name?
You can't
Desiree
have
Rogers
come in and not be checked. I mean, what they do is they take you in and they wave you in and take your Social Security number and they go do a background check. And these folks just waltzed in without any sort of prior.
I think we've got to keep sense of perspective here. Remember, there are thousands of people that are working for the Secret Service, and they're doing a phenomenal job. I mean, they're protecting them. I mean, the share of nuts out there is probably at an all-time high, and their job is unbelievably dangerous, stressful. Now, I mean, if these 11 individuals.
Well, this is one way to relieve stress.
It relieves stress, yeah. But, you know, I think the vast majority of them apparently are doing an incredible job.
So the president's response, though, everything's political. The president's response Saturday, I was on the air with Fox Report, and this story was breaking. And it was weird to see a scandal break at, 7 o'clock on a Saturday night. That means they want... They're thinking no one will see it. But a lot of people watch the news on the weekends, I can tell you. And our emails were flying. You know, everybody was getting information on this. The Associated Press, Reuters, everybody's engaged on a Saturday night. And what was interesting that came out of this, though, is that the president said, well, if this turns out to be true, I'll be very angry. What does that mean politically?
Well, you know, I think...
what are you going to replace the director of the Secret Service? I mean, you're the president of the United States. When you say you're going to be angry if it turns out to be true, what does that politically mean?
I think it depends what the facts are. I mean, if it's shown to be something that's systemic, that's going throughout the whole service, if this is just one of many incidents, then I think heads need to roll. There's no two ways about it. But I think it was appropriate for him to say, look, let's wait till we get the evidence. It doesn't look good.
Why doesn't he say they're fired if we find out it's true instead of saying I'm going to be very angry?
That's what I want to know. I want to know. So here's what I'm getting at. And I don't want to paint anybody with a wide brush, but you talk about systemic. The General Services Administration, GSA, is going through a little scandal right now. Get your party on in Vegas to the tune of $800,000 taxpayer money. taxpayer money,
this
right?
is awful. The
Okay,
GSA
this
scandal's
again
really
on the
terrible.
president's watch.
I think, the whole thing about the GSA thing, I mean,
But I haven't heard him say he's going to be angry if he finds out about it. Oh, I guess that's just money. By the way, this whole sex scandal was about money, too, non-payment.
Well, but here's the thing about the GSA one. I got to be honest. I'm going to go on there and say I think this is much ado about almost nothing. And here's why.
Do you have $800,000 to pay back?
I would have it every day if we weren't in Iraq for the Iraq War. I mean, the Iraq War has cost about 1 million times as much as that Vegas conference. That was $833,000. And, look, they did stuff they shouldn't have done. There's no two ways about it. But I think all too often in America, we lose a sense of perspective. And we miss the far larger problems, the far larger wastes of money and wastes of lives. So, did they do something wrong? Heck, yeah, totally. But do I think it's been overblown? Yeah, big time.
Did you see the rap video?
Yeah.
They made a rap video
Yeah.
making fun of the fact that it's so easy to spend our money and have there not be any accountability. I got money in my... I mean, are you
It was almost
kidding
like
me?
they were goading everyone. It was a joke. Let's see what we can get away with. I mean, we were talking about fortune tellers and a clown.
Well,
a scary, very scary clown, by the way.
Those are things you need when you go to Vegas.
And, just all
I
this-
think it's ironic, though, because a few years ago we were talking about the fact that the president said, don't spend your money in Vegas. I'm not making it up.
Well,
there
speaking
is
as
a
a Democrat,
pattern
I
here.
love
That's the
Vegas and I love
problem.
Nevada.
You've got, Fast and Furious, nobody goes down. And GSA, look what's going on here. And then Secret Service, he's just going to be angry. I mean, these folks who do something wrong in the government
I'm
kind of
just
need to
wondering
be...
politically, as the president, when do you stand up and have your Samuel L. Jackson moment? Hell no, I ain't going to take it no more.
Well, I think we're getting used to a president who actually thinks through stuff as opposed to just shoots from the hip without any information, like the former president. So it's a little unusual.
Please.
So, to his
It's
credit...
never a good day,
Yeah, but you know what?
if you don't blame Bush, right?
You can take whatever shots you want to take at former President Bush, but I don't think that Democrats or Republicans ever doubted what made him angry and where his heart was.
True.
And there was never this sense of, well, depending on what... This particular president is very professorial. He likes to get... He's more than a seasoned journalist. He doesn't just three-source a story. I think he wants the Secret Service agents in his house to tell him exactly
With
what
the beer.
happened.
But if we'd had that with the
Absolutely.
weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, it would have been good to have a few more sources to verify that. I think
You love going back to that.
And these
Yes,
are
I do.
not...
And by the way,
things.
we'll talk Afghanistan in a second. This president may be wearing that like the albatross around his neck.
True.
It's an interesting thing, but go ahead.
True. Well, it's just very irresponsible right now. I mean, these are big deals. Really, the Secret Service is there to protect the President of the United States, our Commander-in-Chief. That's a big deal. They shouldn't be doing what they were doing with
Totally
21
right.
hookers, all right? I mean, it's dangerous. It's a security risk is what it is.
Yeah.
And then the GSA, with all the waste with that and with Solyndra, I mean, the big government waste is a terrible problem with this administration.
Here's the thing about the GSA, though. I mean, the GSA, from everything the big question with the GSA is this systemic? Is this indicative of a larger problem? My understanding from people who work with the GSA is that it's not. Now, if this is
clowns and fortune tellers is not a problem.
well, it's not like they have them running around the offices, as they're doing their work. One clown, one mind reader is probably one too
$1
many.
million of fun and games. It was just a big waste.
Well, but there's 300 employees going. It's a big conference. And look, the reality is when you have these employees getting together at a conference, they're going to work
you got to
better
be creative to
afterwards.
spend $850,000. That's for sure.
Oh, in Vegas,
they
that
were.
could be one night. That's. But I think. I still wish that we would just focus on the larger issues, something like Iraq. It
Well,
just,
government
I look at
waste.
that.
Well, government waste.
is always,
I
always
want to
important.
just step back to the government waste issue. Because nothing has been proven here, but I do think it's just maybe even a TikTok
We've
away.
seen the video, Harris,
if
of the
at
clown.
all, these secret agents were spending any money. Like, we haven't even talked about the money that was going on there. Their per diems, by the way, come from us.
Yeah, true.
They're spending per
It's-
diem
yeah,
on
it's-
hookers. I'm telling you, this president could have a perception problem in terms of being angry on the right issues. I just put it out on the live chat. Isn't government waste the right issue?
But let's remember, though, there's a Republican senator in the Senate right now who is spending on hookers directly. So,
PD, you want to take
this
that?
is many steps
I
removed
just don't
from
even see
president.
where it's related. I mean, why even? I get that it's like, well, he did this, but it's okay because the Republican did that. That doesn't make it any better. And he's not running for president.
that's an interesting point.
It's not like President Obama was in the room, kind of, handing over 20s.
But he's in
this is
charge.
he-
Solyndra and
on.
GSA.
Okay.
So
So our
where's
question
the
of
adult
the day.
in the room?
Our question of the day is: are there certain, where is our question of the day? Is there such a thing as off the clock when you're on a work trip?
I mean,
I would take that one, John?
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, I would say absolutely not. I mean, if you're on a work trip, Ben Franklin had a saying, 3 can keep a secret if 2 are dead. And, something is going to get out. Secrets are going to get out. You can't do stuff and expect it to not be found out. But also, it's not appropriate.
I argue I don't think they were trying to be secret. You don't, no one, they work in the Secret Service, for goodness sake. They know that by inviting 21 people to a room, there's not going to be a secret. I don't think this is about secrecy. I think this is about perception and entitlement.
Yes. Yeah, and you know what? There's a difference between...
And where does that come from? It's a question, and it's a fair question, John.
From the top.
Oh, well, come on.
All right. Bill 67410 says, I cannot understand, he's making the point, how the head of the Secret Service can still have his job.
Agreed.
He is responsible for the actions of the agents. You are the commander-in-chief. You go to Mr. Head of the Secret Service and you say, dude, you're out.
Yes.
Not if it turns out to be true, I'm going to be really angry. That's what I say to my 5-year-old.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. I mean, you get rid of the head of the Secret Service. Remember, that shakes up an organization big time. I think it's really bad.
It needs to be shaken up.
Let's
after
remember that.
All right, let's get back to the GSA for a second.
What
about the head of the GSA?
Yeah.
One of the key figures in the GSA says, taking the fifth is how you deal with the scandal.
When you're guilty.
I'm not going to talk at all.
Well, that just tells you, I mean, we just have at the top, we don't have the supervision that we need. I mean, this is a pattern of behavior. It's happening.
John, push back. I want to hear your argument on this.
Well, we're trying to make it about President Obama, and the reality is it's just not.
It isn't? Okay, let's make it about the White House.
But he's not the commander.
If you don't want to single out the commander-in-chief on these issues, let's make it about the White House. Does he not have the right people around him giving him good advice?
I think he's getting great advice. I mean, like he prevented a second Great Depression. I mean, he's got us out of Iraq, pretty much. We're getting out slower than I'd like out of Afghanistan.
We'll talk about Afghanistan.
I mean, he's solving a lot of problems that President Bush left him. So that's how I judge it.
It's a second blame Bush of the day. You got one more.
Congressman Michael was on with Greta Van Susteren, and he was saying that the White House knew about the GSA. I kind of set you up there. I gave you an opportunity to talk about the White House.
It is old news. I mean,
let's watch a little bit of the back and forth between Greta Van Susteren, my colleague, and Representative Micah.
But do you in any way sort of, assign blame to the White House on this?
Well, they were very quiet. I think there was an attempt to brush this under the carpet, so to speak.
In what way?
Well, they were informed again. It was the communications from the GSA Council to the White House Council, as you said, last May. Here it is, not quite a year later, and it just comes out about a week ago. They knew about this, and they were also told again to stop the nonsense, to stop the waste and possible criminal activity, and nobody did anything.
Your thoughts quickly on that, and then I want to go to the live chat.
Well, obviously they knew something. This has been out there for a while. Look, I work at the White House. People know everything that's going on. They say they don't. It's not true. They know what's going on. They know this happened.
A clown was hired. I mean, let's get a sense of perspective.
It'd be better if the president just said, "Look, you're fired. You messed up. Let's find somebody else who's more responsible."
I mean, the Secret Service. You fire the head of it. Guess what? You shake up things. They are trying to protect the president. They're trying to protect important officials.
Exactly why the head should be fired. That is what they should be doing.
Yeah, but when you fire them, I mean, what kind of ripple effects does it have? I
hope a lot of ripple effects after this happened.
I mean,
this is a big, big deal.
It's a big deal. But I think you get the facts first, find out. I mean, the idea of just going in and willy-nilly firing people, let's find out the facts first. At the very least,
the president should say, if this is true, they should be fired, instead of just saying, I might be a little angry. I might be angry. I might be angry.
Well, I think we want to find out the facts first before we go in.
Someone is going to be fired, the head of...
let me ask it a different way. You guys are kind of going around in a circle here, but in your households, I don't know if either of you is raising kids or you were a kid one day, so I'm sure, at one time, I'm sure you remember. In the most effective households, usually there's a perception of the one person of authority in the household who, if they get ticked, it's zero tolerance. We don't have that right now.
True. And that's not good.
And I'm not pointing a finger at any one particular person, but in other past administrations, with Bill Clinton, you knew you had it. He seemed like a dude that you really don't want to tick off. And if it wasn't him, you knew you didn't want to tick off Hillary.
That's true.
But in this administration, who is that person?
But he doesn't have that sort of cowboy run-in
Are you calling Bill Clinton a cowboy? No, I'm saying, and with Ronald Reagan, you knew you had it. Who in this administration do you say, oh man, I got gum on my shoe, I better sneak out of here?
I think it's the president, but we're getting used to a new model of someone who actually gets the facts and thinks them through.
Right.
But he actually gets the facts.
I picked somebody from your party. You don't think that former President Clinton got the facts?
Oh, I am sure he got the facts. I mean, I'm saying, in contrast to what we just had, President Bush making all kinds of shoot-from-the-hip decisions that proved to be disastrously wrong. I think it was fourth, actually. I want my due credit. But, I mean, he made some disastrous decisions. I think the question is, we're in a 24/7 media cycle now where we want quick things to happen, but let's give it a couple of days, let's give it a couple of weeks to get the facts in. And, I'm sure heads will roll.
Yeah, but this has happened over and over again with Fast and Furious. It's with Solyndra, with everything. All these things where it seems like there's no supervision. It's like, wait a minute, I don't know what's going on. Do you know what's going on? And they just point fingers at everyone.
Here's the lack of supervision.
James Carville, by the way, who I think is a very smart man, I don't agree with him. He has even said, what is Barack Obama doing? Why is he firing these people? Why are heads not rolling? Why is he not getting rid of these problems? It's a smart political move.
He's focused on much bigger problems.
Off the live chat, and I don't know, I tell you what, if something had happened to the president because of this whole ordeal, it disturbs me that you would say, I want the president to focus on bigger problems.
But
his
the president
safety
is not
has to be number one.
Oh, yeah,
because you know what we look like to the rest of the world if we can't protect our commander-in-chief?
But that's what I'm saying. You don't want to willy-nilly fire the head of the Secret Service.
I can't even use the word on television ever.
But you don't want to fire the head of the Secret Service without
the way.
But you can't look weak.
You know what the football is.
But I don't think he looks weak.
You know what the football is, right?
The nuclear codes.
Football. Yeah, I mean, they have the nuclear codes. Okay,
yeah, but they didn't
serious
have them,
business.
I mean, they're with the president. I mean, what I'm saying is, let's get the facts first.
Secret Service is with the president, though, to protect the president.
The last thing you want to do is fire the head of the Secret Service.
Would you want to be hanging out with this group of people? Would you
not
hanging with them? Would you want their responsibility to be to protect John Hlinko?
I would trust my life with the Secret Service, with those individuals who went and,
But they were busy at the time. You couldn't trust them then.
Yeah, but
they
were part of the advance team.
Though.
So you pull into town 2 days later and say it hadn't. What if we didn't know about it? What if dude had paid this woman and it never came out?
I think any of the people that knew about it or participated in it should be fired. There's no question.
So why hasn't that happened yet?
Well, because what I'm talking about is the head of the Secret Service. That was the question. Like, do we want to fire that person? What I say is when you do that, you shake up things. Well, but you shake up things, and what happens?
Why hasn't he fired anybody?
Well, but remember, if they're doing a good job protecting the president, think about how many threats this president has against him.
Yeah.
There's no way.
All right, Chris Service One says, and I asked the question about. I didn't. It's our question of the day. Is there such thing as off the clock when you're on a work trip? Which is a pretty benign way of talking about what we're talking about. I happen to like it. Do you guys know what? It's tied almost right now. The results.
I believe that.
47% say yes, 50% say no. That's a statistical tie. And this isn't a scientific thing, but when you consider that 2.45 people are not sure, it means that it's really close. Yeah. Chris Service One says on the live chat, no, in fact, these days you're never off the clock. Just look what happens when people post stuff on Facebook.
Yeah. Good point.
Interesting. Our viewers are thinking. King of Politics brings up something else. And this is true. Off the clock is the way they found Osama bin Laden. I mean, there is no clock anymore. Harris, the Special Forces troops were there for a reason. There is no clock anymore.
Well, I think it depends on the job, too. Look, I think Hillary Clinton should get a pass. I think it was really bad how they were giving her a hard time about having a couple beers afterwards. That was off the clock, in my opinion. I think that she should not have
she's not part of the Secret Service.
I don't think, well, exactly. Right. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah.
I think Hillary Clinton needs
her
to be
job.
off the clock.
I like the way you put that.
That's a tough job, and she needs to have some
remember,
downtime.
she wanted to take the phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning, so, I mean, you can't be having too many beers because...
Right. Exactly. What was
Let's take a look at the numbers that have come out in this new general election matchup. This is a CBS News New York Times poll from this week. A statistical tie, a tie. The gap has closed. And, we list Mitt Romney on top because if you look at an average of polls across the country now, this is actually anathema to what we're seeing. We're seeing Romney pull ahead a couple points. John Hlinko, what is this president dealing with right now? Why is his popularity sliding?
Well, I think what's happening in part is that as the Republican primary season has ended, effectively, Mitt Romney's popularity is starting to climb. I think the reality is, a couple of weeks ago...
But they're not just talking with Republican voters here. These are people.
But some of his supporters coming back.
Mitt Romney's supporters are now looking at Barack Obama? I mean, what are you saying?
No. What I'm saying is that Romney...
No. If you canvass 500 people... You canvass 500 people.
Oh, yeah.
They have no way of knowing what you're going to ask them in the survey.
Oh, no. What I'm saying is that in surveys from a few weeks ago, when he was in the midst of being attacked by Newt Gingrich, Rick Santorum, I mean, remember, we're talking about a couple of points difference here.
You think that they were going for Barack Obama at that time?
No. What I'm saying is I think part of this is that Romney's starting to come back when he's not subject to nonstop 24/7 attacks.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But, I think part of this is also going to be the economy. I mean, where the polls end up.
But I thought Democrats thought the economy is awesome.
The economy is not awesome, but it's a lot better than... You know what the unemployment rate would have been?
No. You said earlier in this program, and don't make me roll the tape on you. You said that this president, and I'm going to quote you, saved us from a Great Depression and brought the economy back to where it is today. Proudly you said this. Are you telling me you're not so proud?
Here's how we saved us from a second Great Depression. Jobs loss, the final month of the Bush administration, the number of jobs lost was 741,000. Do you know what the unemployment rate would be today if that trend had continued? 27%. We're talking Great Depression.
So you can do math, by the way.
What's that?
5%. Not 8.2. Not 9.
No,
but John, I'm proud that you can do
Bush
math. What I want you to do, though, is talk about today. And I challenge you to talk about today without mentioning President Bush's name again.
Darn.
It's like a drinking game in reverse. If I don't hear it, I get to drink. Go on.
I think the reality is that, I think of the analogy of having 105 fever and going to the hospital. They bring you down to 101. You still feel pretty sick, but you're a heck of a lot better than you were.
You walk around with 101 temperature for 7 days, you could lose your hearing. You could have things go terribly wrong. You need an antibiotic. Who told you that 101 is safe?
No, nobody's saying that the economy today is great. What we're saying is we were headed for disaster. Have you seen those job loss numbers just skyrocketing
101
under
over a
the
long period
previous
of time is
president?
the same as 107 for 2 seconds.
Well,
you can die from it.
You can't reverse a Great Depression or prevent a Great Depression.
I'm not letting you watch my children.
You can't reverse a Great... the reality is it doesn't happen overnight.
You were talking about Mitt Romney being attacked. Before it was sort of the Republican collective, and there were some folks that were running that I wouldn't even want as president. But I think Mitt Romney's great. A couple of the candidates were toxic and not good, especially with women. Where Mitt Romney is doing much better now because he's out of that collective. Which is a good thing.
Agree.
And Mitt Romney, when it's mano a mano, and Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama, it is much, much better for us, and much better for Mitt Romney. That's why he is gaining in points.
Well, I can't wait either, because I missed the debates. I don't have anything to do anymore. The Tuesday nights come around, I'm like, what the heck am I going to do with my night?
There were so many, and they ended so early.
Will you two sit tight for a second?
Sure.
Yeah,
okay. I'm talking about whether or not you ever are off the clock when you are on a work trip. We were tied just moments ago, which kind of surprised me, because I kind of thought the answer was no. I mean, you can have a beer every now and then, but if you get the 3 a.m. call, don't you still have to answer it?
What about Hillary, though? Didn't you think it was okay for her to hang out after hours? And
she drank beer on the presidential campaign trail when she was running it for the nomination.
At the White House.
I think having a beer is fine. I think if Hillary was doing Jello shots or something.
You say you don't agree with it.
No, I think it's unfair. And it's a stressful job, and I think it's okay to let off steam.
I think it was the beer lobby.
Different than Secret Service and the hookers.
Some brand didn't like it. Well,
that's different.
But isn't that interesting?
But
she's a woman. She's gone out to have a drink. You got heat coming down on you. You know people are going to point. I know you're defending the president on this, but this is happening on his watch. Maybe there's a perception of guy in charge is not tough enough. I don't know. It's just a question.
I'm a Republican woman, and I'm defending Hillary because it's a different situation. It's not a security issue. They were doing advanced work.
But if you pick on, it's like pay no attention to what's going on over here. Look at what's going on over here.
I think the thing about Hillary is, it was such a non-issue. I mean, again, if she'd been doing Jello shots and beer sliding,
so why make a deal out of it?
Well, when you're with those 21 gals, you're probably totally preoccupied.
Oh, the prostitutes we're talking about, or Hillary?
And there are 21, and
the Secretary
they
of State knew her photo was being taken.
So
She's very
drinking
comfortable
and
with
dancing?
who she
What
is.
It, Footloose?
She knows
is
she
it
can get the
illegal
job
to
done.
dance?
Yeah.
I think dancing's a good
Very
thing. I like
interesting.
seeing Hillary
I
dancing
agree.
and
All
drinking.
right.
I
And
think
we may be
that's
dancing when we come back.
And it, look, and you know
But
what?
there will not
It was
be
like
21
10
paid
beers
women
and 2
here.
whiskeys with a group of like 8 people. I mean, you know, I don't think anybody's that big of a lightweight. Maybe
Interesting.
you are. I don't know.
Republican
No,
woman
I don't
defending
drink at all.
Hillary Clinton.
No, a little.
Talk to me about that women's vote. Okay, we'll be right back, everybody.
About the VP thing, my governor, Rich Daniels, just
My guests here are going off at each other, although we're going to talk about a different subject.
Mitch Daniels just endorsed Mitt Romney while we're on air, and he's a potential VP candidate, so it's pretty cool.
Very interesting. Okay, all right. Actually, we knew that was coming on Fox and Friends. It happened about an hour ago.
Oh,
but
yeah, that's
quickly,
true,
give me your thought.
Oh, are we on the air? Is it
Yeah, we're on the air.
It's a
You
joke.
had an open mic, so I figured
I
I'd better
know.
tell everybody what
It's
you're
a joke
talking
from a
about.
previous show a couple nights ago, but anyway, no. Mitch Daniels, my governor of Indiana, just endorsed Mitt Romney, and Mitt Romney kind of said, "Well, I think he'd be good at whatever he wanted to do in my administration," and he shares my interest
And you think he might be a VP pick?
Yeah.
All right,
I
we'll
hope
talk
so.
more about it. I just wanted everybody, since you could probably hear Dee Dee Minke and her excitement because her BlackBerry's blowing up
Yeah, I was
because Mitch
very,
Daniels
very
has
excited about my
endorsed her
governor.
candidate. And we're going to continue the conversation that has really been driving the live chat this morning. You guys have some definite feelings about this. And I guess it's a confusing issue. I didn't think it would be. But our question of the day, which sits just beneath the live box in which you're watching us in now, is there such thing as off the clock when you're on a working trip? You're still relatively tied at about 48-50% there, and 2% of you not sure. So if you factor all that in, it's not a scientific poll, but it looks like you're not. Some of you are not quite sure whether or not you're ever off the clock. Some of you say that you're never off the clock. Joining us now to talk more about a couple of scandals that are rocking, I guess you could say it's rocking the administration. One of our guests didn't seem to think that the president is being rocked at all, but we'll see. Dr. Keith Ablow, it is Wednesday, Hump Day Wednesday, free health care on that day, and he's bringing us some. Dr. Keith Ablow is here with why government officials think they are invincible. Couple things going on. You've got the GSA scandal and the rap video, which showed us that they like to party at the Government Services Administration.
Absolutely.
And spend our money doing it. And then you have the Secret Service agents down in Colombia with reported now 21 paid friends. I don't really... right, to
Paid
stop,
friends.
To stop by their hotel rooms of allegedly of these 11 agents and 5 military members. Do they just not care what we think?
Well, do they not care? I think that first of all, there's this psychology that when you're on a trip out of the country or away, it does, to some extent, disinhibit you. Right? Okay, so this is just a fact. I'm not suggesting it's wise. But people, for some reason, feel like, well, I'm away. All the structural things that define me at home no longer apply.
But they're Secret Service agents. They're always away.
But they're always away, and as to whether they're ever not on the clock, I'd go back to their paychecks. Are they paid 24/7, portal to portal, or aren't they? Because that's the data that applies.
So are you saying we're not paying them enough?
I'm saying look at their paychecks. Are they paid 24/7, portal to portal, or aren't they? Because otherwise it goes to whether they ever signed, and I assume they do, right, some kind of behavior code. We will not embarrass the United States.
You can't get your clearance if you have an extramarital affair, for instance, because you can be bribed, and that can be used, to harm the president. They have.
I think you'd be bribed more if you haven't, but nonetheless, yeah.
No, but I mean, there's all these parameters.
There are all these parameters. So if they violated those, then of course you take action based on that. There's all kind. This is like Freud once said, if you understand like depression, you can understand all of psychiatry. This is like you can understand almost everything because there's so many issues here. One is prostitution, and the fact that men, many men, millions of American men, avail themselves of escorts in this country. It's not in general prosecuted. They consider themselves to be good and decent people. I guess they go to work, they raise families, and yet we lock up some people for it. We fine people for it. We got to make a decision. Are we legalizing this or aren't we? Because it's kind of unattractive to me that like lawmakers, people who will be lawmakers, people who are police officers, hire prostitutes in large numbers, and yet we're content to have these laws on the books.
You know,
we should probably get them off the books, because otherwise we're just...
I broaden it out to something else, and I understand that two consenting adults are two consenting adults. But when you have a large number of people in a foreign country, and you don't have ID checking, I think, and I'm not saying it happened in this case, it is a growing ground for sex trafficking.
Absolutely.
Because in those countries, you tend to see younger and younger and younger girls and women in that trade. And then you get into all sorts of things which we are definitely sure about in this country we don't want. And maybe prostitution is on the fence. Children and prostitution, we're not on the fence about.
Well, we're not on the fence about that. We shouldn't be on the fence about that. But again, we get into all of these issues, right? So one is, can you bear the terrible irony that millions of American men and some women avail themselves of these services, and yet it's against the law? Same with drug laws. We got to look at that too, because it's unattractive to have many, many congressmen and senators who've done cocaine and are content to lock people up for doing cocaine. It's just bad karma. It makes us look like liars, two-faced. We have to fix that. We have to decide what we really mean.
Wait a minute. Didn't this president say in one of his books, I think, The Audacity of Hope? I can't remember which one.
That he had used.
That he'd
I would agree 100% with what the doctor's saying. I think we should decriminalize things that are victimless crimes. Because let's remember, at the same time, the police resources are being spent to find...
Your now candidate for re-election doesn't agree with you on this.
I don't agree with everything the president says, but when it comes down to it for me is we're actually having law enforcement officials, we're spending resources, money, time chasing down people smoking half a joint in their basement when we could be going after real criminals.
It's absolutely nobody's business. It is not the government's business what people place in their bodies or what they do with their bodies. It never was.
Is it our business if these Secret Service agents who were on advance before the president got there 2 days before are having hooker parties?
They should all be fired immediately.
Agreed.
They should be gone.
All right.
And if the president hasn't
said
said that,
he's Talk to me about this.
Okay, so how can the president pick out a professor who gets locked out of his house in Cambridge, Mass. and say this is like a national disgrace, and not call for the firing of these folks because he looks insane? Speaking as a psychiatrist,
I said he looks
utterly
But the
crazy.
doctor says insane. John, you push back at me.
I think firing the actual agents, I totally agree.
Well, has he said that? I don't know. Has he come out?
He said that if it turns
Where's
out
the president here? The president is saying
he might be angry.
That he may be angry.
Yeah, that's it.
If it turns out to be true.
But remember that.
No, he said, of course I'll be angry. He said, of course I'll be angry.
We need somebody
if it turns out
in the
to be true.
corner office who's trustworthy and embraces all citizens.
Were you watching the
and
show
believes
earlier? Because this is exactly what I was saying.
Believes in the rule of law, exactly.
Exactly, but the rule of law.
Not just the rule of law for black professors who gets locked out of their houses, but all of us, white guys, black guys,
I agree
Asians,
with the rule of law. But remember how the rule of law works. So the rule of law works in the way you find the evidence first.
No, so why is he commenting on stray cases?
Charles Reese says on the
fired if it is.
I want to go to the
Why
live
is the
chat.
president saying, commenting on cases that are local jurisdiction, criminal cases, or not even criminal
that's
cases?
Like 2 years ago. I mean,
No, and now this one with the kid who was killed in Florida.
Okay, Charles Reese says
my son would look like that.
Charles Reese says
my sister would look like a prostitute.
Charles Reese says on the live chat, "Amen, Dr. Keith." I just thought you might want to hear that.
Well, thanks. I like a supporter now and then. I feel so
does
alone.
Dr. Abloh think the addictive behavior impulses and serotonin kick in when people engage in this kind of behavior that these agents are accused of? That's all for jury on the live chat.
Look, I think, yes. I mean, is there an addictive quality to the release that comes with being anonymous and engaging in highly erotic activities? Yeah, it can be like a drug. And it's funny, but people dehumanize and depersonalize those experiences. They never think of it as, well, am I really weighing in a negative way in this woman's life? Is this going to be something that she looks back on that I wouldn't want to be part of? So really what's required here is free agency. We've got to get to a point where we say, look, if you're 18 and you can go to war or sign up to be in the military, certainly you can make the decision whether to get naked with somebody for money. Like, totally other than that, it's just a moral issue.
Or in this case,
like,
as has been alleged, this whole thing came out because somebody didn't want to pay the bill.
Well, that would make anyone angry. It would make me angry if someone.
I mean, you can't even make it up. Will there be a beer summit in Colombia? Chris Service 1 wants to know. You know what?
Good question.
Here's here's why I asked if you watched the beginning of the show. And I didn't mean to put John on the hot seat with
No,
this,
I like
but I
it.
think it's a fair
it's
question.
fun.
And here's the question. And I put it out on the live chat. Is there a perception that the guy at the top doesn't get tough on certain issues?
Absolutely.
And you said, oh, no, we can look at Iraq and Afghanistan.
He's the guy who got Bin Laden. He's
that if the
certainly tough
president
enough.
is not kept alive, those issues won't be on his plate.
Listen,
anyway.
but that's.
I mean,
do we want to? But look, there were
over and
military.
again.
But look, there were military.
Yeah.
I mean, there
But
were
this
service.
idea
Listen, for a
of-
president who's crossed the Rubicon and said that victim of that crime looks the way my son would look. It's highly personalized. For some, no, hold on.
That's showing his human
I want to
side.
know, has he ever hired a call girl? Ever. Or attended a bachelor party where women stripped for money? Because it's important that we know now that he has personalized every crime.
Well,
where does the president stand on this? And is he not coming forward and saying, get rid of him because he's done it too?
Well, hold on now. What he?
I want to know. No, can
Well,
I know my
I'd love
president?
to know that about a couple of.
No,
Actually,
but
we do know that about
I
a
didn't
couple of city
comment on
members
all
of the
these
Senate.
crimes and say my son would look like the victim.
Well, but the question
okay,
here is,
how
do
about
we,
the
so you're
girls here?
saying
Do
that
they
he should
look
come
like
out
you?
and say that they should fire the agents,
Yes,
fire the head of the
Yes,
Secret Service.
absolutely.
Do we also then fire all of the generals in charge of the armed forces because there were service members
what's
involved
that
as
got
well?
to do with
Well, because there were service
this?
members as well.
Well, service members should go. They represent
But do we fire all the
country.
generals? Because we've got wars going on right now. What
Why
I'm
would
saying
we fire
is,
the generals?
There's
why
no
not? Well,
reason
then
to
why
fire
would
the
they call to get
generals.
rid of the head of the Secret Service?
The head of Secret
Well, I don't
Service
say the
in charge,
head of
you
the
get
Secret
20
Service
Well, and I would
Secret
agree.
Service agents.
I think
it's
you
a
get
big
rid
deal.
of,
It's
you
very
get rid of the
bad.
agents, but when you're in the
I
middle of
don't know
the
about
Secret
the head of
Service
the
has one of the
Secret Service.
toughest jobs in the world. Think about the lunatics they're protecting this president and other officials from. Do we want to start shaking up the agency? I mean, we wouldn't go in and fire all the
when
generals.
they're doing something like this.
Yeah,
of
but you
course.
know
Yeah,
what?
but
To be
John,
honest,
that's not
this
a
is-
solid
this is-
argument because what you're saying is don't deal with the problem where these guys are messing up because you don't want to endanger the president.
No,
I'm
no, no.
saying that if these guys keep messing up like this, the president is already in danger.
I'm all for
They've
getting rid of
already
these
messed up.
agents.
They
What I'm
should go.
saying is, in the same way that we
But
wouldn't
if your
fire
guy
a
at
general.
the top at the agency hasn't gotten rid of them, and if your guy at the top of the GSA has decided he doesn't want to talk, what do you do as the president? You do it
Fire him.
yourself.
Well, then
You know
you
what I would
take
say?
care
You do
of
it yourself.
You take care of
Yeah,
it.
Well, what I
fire
would
it.
say is, with the Secret,
All
what
right.
is the Secret Service's primary mission? It's to protect the president and,
And they
other
weren't
officials.
doing it with
Yeah,
21
but look,
hookers.
here's the
But
thing.
they
This
have-
is like a unifying field theory
sounds like
here.
a punchline.
We all could
Hey.
we all could say,
All
while
right.
draconian perhaps or reactive, if he were to fire them and say, look, it's my job, you're gone, I'm sorry, that we would say, look, that's within his realm of responsibility. He can do that if he so chooses.
Are you
Right?
Are you going to write about this today?
I don't know. Maybe I will. I don't know. You know, I have to
You
talk
should.
to my editor
I want
over
to tell
there
everybody
after this.
to check the health and opinion tab on foxnews.com and to look for Dr. Keith Ablew's articles in any event.
Oh,
but if
that's
you,
so
if
nice
you
of
write
you.
about
Thanks.
this, I definitely want to.
But what is it? You know, it's interesting. I really
Well,
wonder why he
we'll
cherry
talk more
picks
when you
cases
come
that
back.
marginalize people
But we'll talk
instead
about
of the ones that
entitlement
unite us.
and invincibility because those were the arguments that I was bringing up
All right.
earlier. But,
Good. I'm glad we agree.
we have to bring you back.
We all
We agree
agree
about
with
half
you.
of it.
We agree about
We all
legalizing
Well,
it.
but you said you don't want to
Guy.
get rid of the head.
And
right?
Dr. Keith
I'm not
Ablow,
sure about
thank
the
you
head
so
of the whole
much.
thing.
We appreciate it. Come
right.
back anytime.